Welcome back to another episode of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. It's been a while. Today we are back and we have a special episode. It's our Breakouts and Busts episode where each of us are sharing our top picks for the 2025 season. So before we dive into it, let's talk about what we mean by breakouts and busts specifically. So a breakout is a player who had a lower ADP or average 2024 numbers who we think are primed to take a big leap forward this season, or it could also be a player who was drafted in 2024. A bust, on the other hand, are higher ADP guys or higher ranking guys or players who put up big stats in 2024 who we think are in for a letdown. So having covered that tonight is not only but Fabio Cirelli, who has the quarterbacks. He'll give us two breakouts and two busts at the QB position because we're a two QB league, of course. Nacc is handling the running backs, one breakout and one bust. I've got the wide receivers, and then we'll have an organic discussion on the tight ends. Before we jump into it, please like, follow, share, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it. We're going to be on a little bit of a load management schedule, if you want to call it, one episode every 2 weeks for June. And then we're back at it one episode a week starting in July with our divisional previews. Fab, let's dive into it. Give me what do you want to do? You want to start breakouts? You want to start busts? What do you want to do?
I'll go with breakouts first. Let's start with some positivity here. So
let's do it. Breakout QB.
Breakout QB. So I was like full on. I'm like, yeah, this is the guy I want to do. And then I saw your little, okay, players under 28 years old. Okay, so this one can't be a breakout. But I'm gonna give him as an honorable mention later on. My first breakout is actually Michael Penix Jr. He's the quarterback 100% for Atlanta, and we saw what we did in the very small amount of time that he had in those 3 games where he ended the season where he was going full on. Listen, excellent offensive weapons. Zach Robinson is the OC. We spoke about him last year too, but now it's another full off season, excuse me, in that offense, right? So, and he also spent 5 years with the Rams. So the guy comes from a very good offensive coordination stock, in my opinion. Like I mentioned, he only played 3 full games, and fantasy points wise, it went from 7.4 to 12.2 to 26 to end the season. So I think
That's
he
the
has
game against the Redskins?
Yeah, against the Redskins. That's right. So I think I think
We're starting
Michael
strong.
Penix Jr. has excellent weekly QB2 upside. Season long, I think he also has top 12, to be honest with you. I think more like towards the fringe, 12, 13, 14. His current ADP is right now, as per Fantasy Pros, he's going as quarterback 23 behind Tua, Drake, Justin Fields, JJ McCarthy, and Trevor Lawrence. I would take a flyer, especially as my QB2, on Michael Penix above all those guys and draft him very early, like not very early, but I would see him. I would be very comfortable drafting him as like the 16th or 17th quarterback off the board, and definitely not a quarterback 23.
Question for you, if Atlanta struggles and comes out of the gate, call it 1-5, do you see an avenue where they turn back to Cousins knowing that they have all that money behind him? Or do they just ride the season no matter how it goes, roller coaster?
I think they ride the season. I think I don't. The only avenue I see to Kirk Cousins starting for Atlanta again is injury. Injury to Michael Penix. That is. I don't see because they invested in him. They invested a top 10 pick. I think it was 9th or 8th overall in 2024. They like him, and you saw what he can do, and he's much more explosive off the ball than Kirk Cousins was. Like Kirk Cousins, we spoke about a lot last year. If he's not playing the Bucks, like you don't want to start him. And Michael Penix was exciting
We
to
said that a
watch.
lot last year.
Yeah, we did. Michael Penix was exciting to watch, and Drake London had a fantastic season last year. He ended off really well because of
Yes.
Penix. If you look at his stats too, and then you throw in all the other offensive weapons they have, like the running backs and the other wide receivers they have. We're not going to mention the tight end, but we're going
Thank you.
to talk about the other offensive weapons they have. I think it's a very good system for him, like he had in Washington, right? When in college, I think it's going to be super explosive, and I think he has the arm talent for that. Again, another year learning the playbook, learning the offense. I don't see how he won't bring you back weekly QB2 numbers. I think QB 23 right now, his ADP is way too low.
I like this because
Mm,
of the fact that he sat almost half the year. He got to learn. And then as you said, we saw what he did during the last, 5 to 6 games. He almost got them to the playoffs too, right? And live arm, like power arm to get the ball downfield to London and all that offensive weapon. So I personally really like this. And if you think of and its rankings, not ADP, right? It's and that's on me. I should have mentioned it's rankings because very few leagues are drafting right now. So he's nestled around the Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Cam Ward. I would much rather take a flyer on Penix over Tua, over Darnold. Bryce Young, I think that's an interesting one. I think he's also primed for a pretty decent year. But I really like the Penix pick.
yeah, but I
Penix
think
also,
he's pretty, like, I would say the ADP or the ranking at 22, 23, I think is, it's where it should be, right? Like I wouldn't rank him high. Like I know you mentioned Fab pushing for top 12 numbers. I don't see it at the top 12 position this year. Again, this is always I always come back to this. If the QBs stay healthy, like if all the QBs stay healthy, I don't see a world where Penix becomes a QB1 this year. Could it be down the line sometime in a few years, perhaps? But I think there's promise. There's definitely upside, and we definitely liked what we saw last year. But the QB1 numbers, I think I'm scared of.
well, to be fair, QB1, I was talking about QB number 12 overall. Like, I don't think he's going to
Yeah,
crack
yeah,
the top
12.
10.
No, that's what I meant. I don't see him cracking top 12. Is what I'm saying.
He also has a lot of rushing upside, right? We forgot about the last game this season. He had some decent rushing yards, and he ran one in for a touchdown too. So I think there is that upside that exists with him that might not exist with other quarterbacks in that same spot. Like the ones we just mentioned right now. And whenever you have a quarterback with rushing upside, I think it does definitely raise the ceiling for them and also gives you a pretty solid floor. So no, I like Michael Penix in 2025. Very comfortably, we'll be drafting him if I have the chance to as a safe QB2, and I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be giving a lot of solid weeks with some solid numbers.
Who's your second breakout, Fab?
Well, you mentioned him, Roger. Bryce Young.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, continuity is key.
You're staying in the
After,
NFC South.
yeah. After the benching, Bryce came back in week 8 and played very well until the end of the season. So I was going through some of his numbers from last year. It was actually pretty astounding. 9 of those 10 weeks in the remainder of the season, he had a top. There were top 20 finishes. 4 were in the top 15. Week 18, he totaled 36 points. Was QB number 1 overall. He added 6 touchdowns with his legs after the Week 11 bye. Carolina have drafted weapons for him at all positions. Most notably, your boy Nacc, that Troya. Current ADP right
Troya.
now, current ADP is 24, which is way too low. Another guy that I think has a lot of top 15 potential, very safe, weekly QB2 with a lot of, I think, some QB1 upside. And the 6 rushing touchdowns after his Week 11, by all 6 of his rushing touchdowns, they came after Week 11. So there is some, again, you talk about like, having that upside, having that safe floor and that higher ceiling. Bryce Young is another one of those guys too. The fact that they invested in all those weapons, Bryce Young is another guy too that I would definitely take a flyer on before the other quarterbacks that I mentioned earlier, like Tua, Drake, Fields, Trevor Lawrence to a degree as well. That just
So you're going
seems
him before Drake May
Trevor
and
Lawrence is
Fields?
who Bryce Young over Drake May.
Yeah, and Fields? You just mentioned Fields.
Yeah.
That one I would strongly disagree with that.
I think they're going to be coming around the same spot. I wouldn't be
Fields
surprised if they
Fields
finish
on
the end of the
bad
season the
teams
same way.
had top 10 fantasy seasons, right? So I'm not sure about but I do agree with you, Bryce Young. Like I like Bryce Young a ton this year. Bryce Young's stock is definitely rising, but man, Drake May,
The only thing with
Fields for sure, no, but May, I guess it would be it's pretty close. It's closer than I'm making it seem, but I think Fields and Bryce Young is two different
Fields,
categories.
I'll give you Fields. He has a better strength of schedule.
But he's better.
The
You
Jets have a
mentioned
pretty
rushing
decent
upside
schedule
before.
next year, and
He's
they
got
have
better.
rushing upside for sure.
He's got
I
better
don't know,
rushing
but I'm high
upside.
on Bryce Young. I really am. I think he finishes like 10 spots above his ADP, 8 for sure. Like I see him in the mid-tier QB2 conversation.
It was very fun to watch Bryce Young at the end of the season. He from week 16, 17, 18, he had 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. My only pet peeve with him, and I'm so happy to see him doing well. My only pet peeve with him was that he did very well against very bad defenses. So against Tampa in week 13, he had 24 fantasy points. Against Arizona, week 16, he had 27 fantasy points. And then the season finale against Atlanta, 36. When he faced better defenses like KC, 16 and a half points, Philly, 12 and a half, Dallas, 12. So I want him to do very well. I think he's going to have a season where he will start every game. But if I had to put caution on something, is that he did it against some pretty bad defenses, and when he faced better defenses, he just wasn't as good. He would just finish with a lot of like 1 touchdown games, which then Fab becomes more of a like QB3 again. You need 2 touchdown games in my opinion to be like a bona fide QB2.
So can you go over those games again that you mentioned that they played tougher defenses? It was KC.
Well, go back to even like New Orleans, like that they were good in the beginning of the year. 9.6 points, Denver 13.6 points, New Orleans 9.7. He played the Giants, who only had 12 points, KC 16 and a half, and that was like some comeback stuff at the end.
Right, but you gotta also put into perspective how everybody else played that week too, right? And when I was going over my stats and I was saying 9 of those 10 weeks at a top 20 finish, we're talking about the Giants, we're talking about KC, we're talking about those tough games they might have played against Philly. It's not every week he's going to put up 36 points, but if we're talking about a QB2 value that's going outside of a QB2 range that can still bring you back some solid returns every single week, I think Bryce Young still fits that mold. And the fact that you're adding a big target like Tech McMillan, who we didn't have before, another speedster on the outside, I think that's also going to help him too. I don't disagree with you. He's going to play better against worse defenses, like you would hope so. But at the same time, you got to also give the guy some credit. I mean, we're talking about a top 20 finish 9 out of the last 10 weeks. And that's consistency. That's what you want, especially out of a QB2. And if you get lucky, you draft him as a QB3, then you could plug him in at the right matchups.
Yeah.
I like Bryce Young as a breakout this year. I do.
I think that I'll after that, like I think we'll move on. I think that gets to Nacc's point where like, if a lot of QBs are injured, then like that, like a 16 and a half point game, it gets you into a top 10 finish.
Oh, that was my next point. Was you rambled off a bunch of teams. When did he play those teams where he had low scoring games? Because there was a lot of QBs that were obviously injured and stuff. So
it's just caution.
Yeah,
like
but
and
hold on a second. Now we're just throwing
good
something that happens every single year, though. There's like how many QBs get injured every single year, and like there's like 40 QBs that start or 50 QBs. Like the number keeps on going up every single year. Like we're working out of a vacuum here, right? Like Bryce Young, talking about a 2 QB league over here. He's a weekly starter in a 2 QB league. There's no doubt about it, and he can give you high end, mid tier QB2 numbers.
I hope he's a weekly starter too. And
sure.
I think he finished off well. So I think there's still some caution on that front. Fab. Now we're gonna move on to the busts for.
But can I give
QBs.
like my honorable mention for the breakout that didn't really
please.
fit?
I like honorable
Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Geno Smith is going as QB25 right now. Like he can easily finish 10 spots higher than that.
36-year-old breakout season.
Yeah, I was going over like, oh yeah, Geno Smith, great. Then I saw like, oh crap, it's 28 and under. Okay.
Breakout season.
Did I say 28 and under?
Right. Yeah. Your first bullet point. Under 28 years old with low ADP. It kind of nicks my Geno Smith, but that's okay. We got him in anyways. So now going to quarterback busts.
Oh my God, I'm gonna bust.
Some controversial. Well, one for sure. Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes QB bust relative to ADP. He's right now his ADP is quarterback 7. That's a little bit too rich for my blood for Mr. Patrick Mahomes, who last year was quarterback 11 and quarterback 13 on a points per game basis. Year before that, I think he was quarterback 8. And then like prior to, he was still like, lighting the world on fire, quarterback 4, quarterback 2, whatever. So obviously there's some RB questions. I'm looking at the microcosm that is that team, right? So there's some RB questions, as is crowded backfield. Left tackle concerns. They traded Joe Thuney to Chicago right now. They don't really have a starter at left tackle at the moment, as we're speaking right now, June 10th, 2025. That can obviously change all that stuff.
Didn't they draft one?
What? I'm
Josh
sorry?
Simmons, yeah, they drafted Josh.
They
They're pretty.
drafted
I
the
think they were
left
pretty
tackle.
high on Josh Simmons.
Yeah, but it hasn't, from what I've been reading from OTAs and all that stuff, like they haven't really been set as to who it is. Anyway, starting a rookie at left tackle, there's always going to be a little bit of concern in that sense. I think it was a second round pick, but listen, we'll see. Wide receiver room, I know Rice, his injury concern is a little bit out there now. It's not really too much of a concern, but it's Xavier Worthy and all that stuff, another year. Tight end Travis Kelce, is he still good? Right? Like, I mean, it's always been the Mahomes and Kelce show right
I
now.
don't
Like,
think so, man. I don't
is
think
this the
so.
is this the end of Travis Kelce?
Nacc,
Guys,
tune it
he's
up,
old.
man. Tune it
He's
up.
old. He's
Tune it.
old. He's
No,
not like
no, he's
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 what
done.
is he, Nacc?
oh he's done.
Jesus,
He's
Yeah.
done.
just save it
He's
for
done.
freaking
Sorry,
Brady, dude.
excuse
What took
me.
you so
Yeah,
long?
he's
Get the hell out of here, man.
look, he's done in the sense that he's not a viable fantasy option anymore, right? Like he's not that viable fantasy. Like, we know what the tight end position is, but he's no longer that top 5 tight end fantasy option that they have. And again, he's going to have a smaller role this year again. Like he's not going to be able to play all the snaps that he potentially has in years past. So
Yeah.
could be done. Could be done. Fantasy wise, pretty done.
So Mahomes is a bust. You're saying?
Well, Mahomes is
Pat.
not he's not quarterback 7 for me. That's for sure. Not even quarterback 8 or 9. Like, I'd much rather go like a Bo Nix or obviously a Baker Mayfield and some type of guys, or Dak Prescott, to be honest with you.
But you see, now we're going into that area where you think Bryce Young could come into the 12. Like, do you have Bryce Young ahead of Mahomes at the end of the year?
Mahomes to me is a very low end QB1. For me, he's like QB11, QB12.
I agree.
That's where I feel comfortable with him. You know what you're getting with him, and he's going to have some really good games. But do I see him cracking the top 5? Absolutely not. Do I see him finishing as even a top 8 quarterback? I would be surprised. I would be surprised considering what we've seen from him. And I also feel like the identity of the Chiefs has changed a little bit. I feel like it's much more defense first than it is, that backyard quarterback stuff, that backyard football stuff. So that kind of gives me a little bit of pause as to like what the ceiling is for Mahomes this year. I think his floor is going to be safe. I think you're getting a very good weekly quarterback 1. Well, sorry, I think you're getting a good quarterback 1 on a week in, week out basis, but I think his ceiling is going to be a little bit limited on a weekly basis. That's why I have a little bit of caution drafting Pat Mahomes where he is at his current ADP.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a revenge tour happening. I think he's really pissed about how it ended last year and how everyone's talking about his numbers being low.
Body shaming him.
Yeah, he cut his hair too. He had that whole story about why he kept his hair is because he was winning and he didn't want to keep it, and now he kind of looks a little bit more normal
I
with his
kind of miss
hair.
his. I kind of miss his douchey mohawk.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah, it
nice
was.
identity for him. I don't.
He's a father now. Father of
Well, he was a
3.
father last year too. He
No,
finished
no, I know, but
QB11.
now it's like he's got to really, he's older. He's got that older guy mentality. I don't know. I see revenge tour coming up this year for Mahomes. But you're right. Like top 5, likely not. Um, I
Honestly,
would
you look at the
say
top
I
5
would say pretty.
quarterbacks. You look at the top 5 quarterbacks of Allen,
No,
Jackson,
a top 5,
Daniels,
100%
Hurts,
he won't. They
Burrow.
all
Like,
run.
I don't see
They all
any
run.
one of those guys slipping for Mahomes to jump in.
No, I don't. He has to throw 50 touchdowns
Yeah,
to
exactly.
get to there. So I don't think he will either.
It was a tough watch with him last year. Sometimes, like fantasy wise,
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah, of
very
course.
tough watch.
Of course.
Second bust for you,
Second
Fab, at the QB
bust
position.
is Tua Tagovailoa, the often injured judo champion of Miami-Dade County. I think the party is over for McDaniels and company. He's being drafted right now as low end QB2, but I'm out on Tua if I can help it. To be honest with you, I think the injury risk and bad play at the end of the last season kind of ruined it for me. There's a lot of question marks too on that offense from like Jonnu Smith might get traded and all that. And I think a lot of touchdowns that Tua had last year came because of Jonnu Smith or vice versa. There's a whole thing going on with Tyreek Hill. Is Waddle ever going to make the jump into what we expect him to be? I'm not sure. And I just feel like, like especially from like and I don't want to hate on Miami all that much, but it's a thing when you need players to perform during fantasy football playoffs, right? Which is like week 15, 16, 17 or whatever it is. So you have players like Tua and who typically don't play well in colder climates and don't play well at the end of the season when the temperatures get colder. You can't rely on this. You can't rely on it from a fantasy football perspective. So I just think that kind of nixes me ever drafting Tua, like apart from my QB3, like
There's
as
a
a
lot of
backup.
injury-prone players on that team, I have to say. Like,
There's also that.
there's Waddle, who's always good to miss a few games. There's Tua, that's always looking to miss a few games.
Achan
Achan
misses
also
a few
gets
games.
injured, misses a few games. So, and I think you're right. I think when it comes down to it, it's the end of the season when you need these players and they're not there for you, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm with you here. I'm down on Miami offense this year. Like, it could go well at the beginning of the season. It usually does. It's warm weather. Play a lot at home in the shade where their opponents are in the dead sun, and they win games. But
Yeah.
at end of the year, to your point, we always see them kind of crumble a little bit, and the fantasy players are not there when you need them.
Quickly, guys, out of all the 4 QBs that Fab mentioned, would you take Aaron Rodgers, newly signed with the Steelers, over any of them in
I think I would
fantasy?
take him over Tua. I think I would take him over
I
Tua.
would probably take him over Tua as well. Penix and Bryce Young, I think there's just too much promise, and I'm not taking Mahomes over. I'm not taking Rodgers over Mahomes. Like, I still view Mahomes as a top 8 and top 10 for sure fantasy QB. So I don't see Rodgers cracking the top 10, even top 12, maybe not even top 15. But Tua, like, again,
Wow,
with the missed time, like, it's the time that you miss, right?
man,
I don't know,
Rodgers
maybe
was top. He was 15th last year with the Jets, and he did turn it on at the end of the year.
I
Similar
think he had
type
more.
of
I think he had more.
similar type
He
of
had more.
offensive
You're right.
talent around too.
He had more TDs than Mahomes, I think, last year.
Finished really well. Yeah, Fab. Last point, and then
I
we'll
do
move
have
on
an
to running
honorable
backs.
mention. I don't know if I'm allowed to have 3 of each, but it is what it is. Too bad.
Just
Jordan Love. Jordan Love right now going as quarterback 16. I think he's exactly where he needs to be, but I'm not very high on Jordan Love, to be honest with you, next year. Just from the fact of, like last year, we expected him to break out. He didn't. Green Bay has a very tough schedule this year and a very tough division, a lot of outdoor games. And whenever there's a lot of outdoor games, they typically lean a lot more on the run game, which is why I'm higher on Josh Jacobs. Last year, Josh Jacobs had 301 carries. I can see that being another thing this year, too. So, yeah, that was just like in that area of the QB 14, 15, 16, 17 area. I would not try to target Jordan Love if I could. I spoke about a few guys earlier up that I would probably have a conversation about picking over Love. Like you're talking about the Dax and the Herberts and the Strouds of the world. Actually, they're going around the same time. Yeah, Love to me is I wouldn't feel great about it if he was on my team next year.
yeah, we gotta see what he does. What they do at the wide receiver position with Golden, they needed to improve that
Yeah,
position from externally, but also internally, as we all know. And just his mechanics, man. Like the previous year, all the like the back foot, the off his back foot stuff, like flicking it up was nice to see, but it did not work last year. So I still think he's gonna have a good career, but I would agree he's more of a I need to see it to believe it in terms of how I think he'll have like a bounce back season.
yeah, and I feel like in that playoff game versus Dallas a few years ago or 2 years ago, that's it. That was his coming out party. We're all super hyped about him and all that stuff in 2024, and it just kind of fell flat a little bit. I feel like, and
Well, he was amazing against the Niners, and they should have They should have beaten the Niners too. So like even there was the hype was even higher after that. But yeah, I would agree with you. That'll do it for the QBs. Nacc. We will go with the running backs now. What do you want to do? You want to start with the busts or breakout?
I'll start with the breakouts.
Do it.
I did it a little differently. I went basically the 2024 draft class in their second years. So I'm gonna take some of these guys. Um, I have two for the breakouts. I'll just take I'll do one quickly because it's a kind of an obvious one. I know I've been talking about him a lot, and it's like the easy pick basically. Bucky Irving. I know right now his ADP is 7, running back 7. I know I've been saying that he's pushing for top 5 and if not top 3 finish this year. Coming off almost 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, 47 receptions for another 400 yards, league high 5.4 yards per carry, and it was the third highest for a rookie with 200 plus carries. Um, yeah, averaged 5.8 throughout the year, and finished, like I said, he finished RB7 last year in his rookie season in PPR leagues. So if it wasn't for, I think it was from weeks 10 to 18, if I'm remembering correctly, he had over 16 points per game in 7 of 8, and it was only snapped when he had that little minor injury. So I'm looking for him to. I think they're going to unleash him this year, and White takes a massive backseat.
So what Nacc, what you're saying is by taking a player who finished top 7 in running back fantasy last year, saying that they're a breakout. You're, to me, that's basically saying you think he's going to finish top 3 this year
Yep.
as a rookie. Okay,
Yep, that's where my head goes.
so that's pretty bold. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if I
just
agree with you. I don't know if I agree with you. Like I love Bucky Irving too. I don't know if I agree with you necessarily. You'd have to see a fall off from a Saquon or maybe a Derrick Henry or one of Gibbs or Bijan just doesn't live up to it. But I love Bucky Irving. Watching him play is extremely fun.
yes, it was. I think I did have him last year. I picked him up.
You did, yeah. You did.
It was a
Yes.
fun little ride that we had. I think he's right now he's ADP 8, ADP 8 behind Henry, McCaffrey, Achan, Genty, Barkley, Gibbs, and Bijan.
Fab.
But I still think he has a even better year this year.
Any concern with the offensive coordinator now being the head coach of Jacksonville, Liam Cohen? You don't think there's a possibility of a fall off as opposed to a resurgence and him being pushed all the way up into the top 3?
No, because you don't forget how to run because of your coordinator.
Well, it's not a question of figuring out how to run, right? It's a question about like offensive schemes and all that stuff.
The passing game coordinator was promoted. The passing game coordinator from last year was promoted to OC.
I have no issues because he had 50 receptions for 400 yards as a rookie, and he didn't start at the beginning of the year, right? So maybe that number jumps from 47 to 60, and that passing number jumps from just under 4 to maybe 550 or 600 touchdowns. He had 8. I'm forecasting definitely double digit touchdowns next year for sure.
I think this is the 4th straight year the Bucks have a new OC, and their offense has basically been a buzzsaw since Baker Mayfield is there. So they've weathered the storm of new offensive coordinators really well. You had a second breakout?
Yeah, so
Nacc, at the running back position?
my second breakout is another running back who was drafted in 2024 by the name of Ray Davis.
Oh,
Yes,
that's spicy.
yes. Yeah, we have
This makes a lot of
James
sense.
I like
Cook,
that.
who did show up to mini camp, to everyone's surprise. I think he was more of a hold in than completely holding out. I guess he didn't want to lose out on. I think it's like 30K a day or 15K a day that they lose out on, and he's still on his rookie deal, so no use
Well,
losing money. But
he knows he has no leverage. He needs to show up to OTAs. It's a smart move, and we're not going to jump
well,
too
I mean,
much
his
into this.
leverage is he scored 18 touchdowns last year. So
16. He scored 16 touchdowns, which is like 14 more than his average.
18. I think he had 2 receiving.
yeah, he had 2 receiving. It was 18.
I like James Cook, but You gotta put your feet back on the planet, my friend. You ain't getting 15 mil a year. Anyways,
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis. So he did quietly have a solid rookie season, 6 TDs and nearly 650 yards from scrimmage, and James Cook really didn't solidify himself as like the red zone guy, right? Plus, like Josh Allen takes a lot of like the red zone kind of away as well. That you kind of lose a little bit to Josh Allen, but um, James Cook didn't play all that much in the red zone. It was all longer runs that he was scoring with, if memory serves me right, in short yardage and stuff like that. And Davis was decisive as a runner, and his ability to catch the ball gave him a good shot at a bigger role. And I think if Cook underperforms, doesn't show up, or gets injured, Ray Davis, I feel like, is in line for a huge breakout. I think he's right now he's ADP 50 for running backs. So anything happens with Cook, like he shoots right up the table, and I think he has a good chance to break out this year.
I had to fact check you, Nacc, but he had 11 red zone touchdowns. Cook. So he was
Goal line. Sorry if I didn't mean to say
yeah.
I meant
So
like goal line.
got it. Yeah. But that's fair because he's the type that will break a longer run in the red zone. Ray Davis had monster game Monday Night Football against the Jets. I think we all remember that because we were
yes.
recording during that game.
Yeah.
He had like a really big run, and he also had 3 catches for 55 yards. I owned Cook throughout most of the year last year, so I kind of felt like I had to own Ray Davis, and he was in the mix quite a bit. So I personally love this pick as well. Even if Cook ends up showing up, which he probably will, or gets re-signed, I think Davis can really sneak into a potential flex play. So I fully agree with you, Nacc. I think this is a great call. Who do you have as your busts at the running back position?
So my bust once again is also a running back who was drafted in 2024. This one in the 5th round. It is Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Mm.
So although he was ranked as an elite explosive with elite explosive runs, and he missed and missed tackle rate. However, he did lose 5 fumbles last year, which is very costly. I think that was third among all running backs last year, and he obviously didn't start this season. And they did draft a guy by the name of Cam Scatabo in the 4th round, who's definitely going to threaten for some target share. And there's also a very huge committee concern with Singletary still being on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no guarantees. I guess he's there outside of camp, but I guess look, it is also OTAs, but he has been seeing the first team reps, Singletary, that is. So again, there's a bit of a concern. Currently going ADP 32 among running backs, so I feel that's a touch high. And with Scatabo entering the fold, I think he could finish out of the top 40.
Fab,
Yeah.
what do you think?
No, I agree. Listen, it's going to turn into a muddy backfield now, and they drafted Cam with the expectation that they're going to play him, and they're probably going to have, they're probably going to go back to that running game of old, right, where they had Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw, where you have guys that have different skill sets but can still be super effective in that backfield. I think that's what they want to get to. Giants, obviously, and obviously I've been reading a lot about it, but they definitely want to have more of an identity this year than they had in years past. I think Cam adds to that because the guy just runs over everybody.
I
So
think the
I
identity is going to be moonballs. No,
yeah, well,
Oh God, kill me.
potentially, but as long as it's wins, I don't care. Anyways,
Yeah.
no, I don't.
Anyways, good. Let's start.
Yeah, Tyrone Tracy going as 32. I think you said, Nacc.
yeah,
That is very rich. I would agree. We're
32. That's he's going before Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Javante Williams, Ramondre Stevenson. There's
mhm.
also Tajay Spears, Rashad White. Obviously, he's going before Scatabo, Eckler, Rico Dowdle. Also, a guy,
Ugh,
Ray Davis, we just spoke about. So who's at 50. So
that's a
there's quite a
murder.
few
That's a
guys.
murderer's row.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
Awful.
he's going just below Like Brian Robinson's going before him, Warren, Caleb Johnson, and Quinshawn Judkins are going right before him.
Yeah, you definitely got to move him down a few pegs. I agree. I wouldn't take him at that spot, but it's going to
I
be
see
something to watch,
Scatterbo.
though. He'll probably be able to give you some weekly RB3 numbers if it breaks right, but you can't rely on him. That's for sure.
I feel like Scatterbo takes over at the goal line. Like he's going to vulture
It's
a lot of
possible. Yeah.
TDs, like in red zone and goal line.
Guys, Scatterbo had 45 catches at ASU last year. Like,
Yeah, he's
he
no
could take
slouch,
over
man,
at
in the
third
passing
down.
game.
Plus, like they might value him more, right? They invested a 4th-round pick in him. Like, what does that tell you? That you got a running back last year in the 5th. He played decent. He had just under 1,000 yards, I think 800 something yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Look, again, it's the 5 fumbles that really stand out. And then they go ahead the next year and use a 4th-round pick on a running back. So to me, it tells me that they really like Scatterbo. And look, it's either going to be a messy committee, and I don't know. I don't see it kind of. I don't see him. I don't think that. I think 32 is just too rich for me at this point.
I agree.
And then just quickly, special mention bust is going to be Audric Estime, R.I.P.
Yeah.
today with the signing of J.K. Dobbins, who everyone are now saying that he might push R.J. Harvey for the starter at the beginning of the year. But Harvey's is going to see a lot of the ball, and I think that spells the end of Mr. Audric Estime in Denver, in my opinion.
Nacc, just do you have a quick word on Nick Chubb? Nick Chubb to Houston while we're on the running backs.
Nick Chubb to Houston, another running back committee, another situation that's most likely to avoid in 2025. Again, I didn't like Mixon last year. He started off really well and then really tailed off. So running back again, getting a year older, tailed off. Chubb coming back from an injury. So now you've got two guys who like you're not sure about. Chubb is not going to see any passing down work, so you figure that he's probably going to get to see some more early, like the early down stuff, just like he did in Cleveland, first and second down, and then you'll have, then you'll have Mixon on third down. Maybe there's Pierce that's still there. I know they're not really high on him anymore, but it's a backfield that's just it's just that there's a lot in there. But again, we've been talking about this. We've been seeing this more and more on how teams are going that two running back system. So getting one of those guys, those three down backs or those workhorse backs is going to be a real plus because you're going to get stuck with these backfields that are splitting a lot.
Yeah, Mixon started so strong last year, and then he really tailed off. And I think you're starting to see age wear on him. So it's, to your point, I think it was the right call to sign Chubb and spell him a little bit. So I'll move on to the breakouts and busts for wide receivers. So I'll try to do this a little bit quickly. So first wide receiver breakout I have is Josh Downs. So in 7 games with Anthony Richardson, he averaged 6 targets, 3 receptions, 48 yards, and 10 fantasy points per game. In 7 games with Flacco, he averaged 10 targets, 7 receptions, 66 yards, and 15.5 points per game. So if you extrapolated his numbers with Flacco to a 17-game season, he'd put up 121 catches, 1,100 yards, and 5 TDs, which would have made him WR3. I'm a big fan of his talent. Say what you will about Daniel Jones. He's a way more capable passer than Anthony Richardson. He still somehow was able to sustain Malik Neighbors pretty decently through the first portion of last year. Yes, Malik Neighbors is amazing. Absolute like WR1. I'm not saying Josh Downs is that, but Downs is a 3-level wide receiver. He could run a full route tree, has really solid hands, and 400 yards after catch, and 40 first downs. That both led the team. And I think the last thing I'll say is that Michael Pittman is still there. I think they're down on him. He has an out after this season with a $5 million cap hit. Had a really down year in 2024. I think the Tyler Warren draft actually helps someone like Josh Downs, who's not just a deep threat, but also can be a deep threat, but also can be an underneath threat. So I really like Josh Downs as a potential breakout for next year.
And just question for you quickly: I'm looking at it right now. He's ranked 43 in the wide receivers. Just above him, you have Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, Jacoby Myers, and Khalil Shakir. Are you taking any of those? Are you taking Downs ahead of any of those guys?
You're not going
Ayuk scares me like crazy because of the ACL. Shakir to me, Shakir is one of those like wide receiver core. It's like it's a different guy every week, and I think Keon Coleman. I would think where they drafted Keon Coleman, they want him to become the guy, and they just signed Josh Palmer. Juwan Jennings is the one that would be tough for me. Like I know Fab is a big Juwan Jennings fan. I am as well. I actually thought of putting Juwan Jennings instead of Josh Downs because I think he's going to be the Niners WR1. So I'd have a hard time between Jennings and Downs and Nacc. I would have to say, but for sure over Shakir, for sure over Ayuk.
Diggs, Myers.
Touch. Sorry,
Diggs and Myers as well.
Myers and Downs are very even. I like Downs a little bit more because he just has a bit more juice than Myers. Diggs, man, like I don't know, man. Like there's a lot happening with Diggs now. Like
So when you're getting into that wide receiver 4 category, which is kind of where we are, I would take a flyer on Downs over Diggs. Just like the fact of just prefer his role in the offense. I know Diggs is a fantastic wide receiver, but obviously he's coming off that ACL sprain or tear or whatever it was, and the whole
pink
ridiculousness that occurs in the offseason. I would be very hard pressed to take Downs over Myers. I'll be honest. Jacoby Myers to me is your perfect wide receiver 3 week in and week out. So I would definitely want to keep Myers there above. Shakir is where it gets interesting. I like Downs a lot. I really, really do. He just needs competent quarterback play, and that goes for both Richardson and Daniel Jones. I don't know what kind of an offensive line they're going to have in Indianapolis. I think their guard play was a lot better than anything they had with the Giants, because typically, from what I remember, the Colts' offensive line, their guards are very good. It's hard to rely on that.
Diggs is the number one target there, right, man? As your wide receiver 4, I would take that all day long.
It's Kyle Williams, man. Everyone's been talking about him.
Guys, I just need a break from Diggs. Like I'm gonna be honest. Like I've had
Diggs.
Like,
Diggs is number
I just
one
need
there.
a break from him. So like, it's like no, I'm not drafting Diggs. I need a break. Anthony Richardson, I think it's a shoulder injury. He's gonna miss all of minicamp.
And it begins.
He may miss some of training camp.
They're like saying not good.
The hope is. Oh yeah, of course he needs these reps, man. Like this, if there's anyone who needs these reps, it's him.
That's what they're saying on McAfee. Exactly.
Yeah, he said the exact same thing. Like this guy needs this. This guy is the one who needs the reps. That's what he's been missing his whole life, right?
I mean, like imagine he's injured for the majority of the season, and it's a third year in a row that this guy has just not seen a single lick of any football. It's just ridiculous. Like it's.
Yeah, it was honestly, like, again, say what you about Daniel Jones. It was a fantastic signing. You're getting a starter quality player.
It was a very smart signing.
The Colts are better with Daniel Jones starting than Anthony Richardson.
Totally.
Because he does bring.
I'm so happy this podcast is being recorded.
Better than someone doesn't mean he's good.
Let's not go there. Like he was your savior, dude.
I always root for my quarterback on my team.
Let's move on. Honorable mention for me for the breakout: Jordan Addison, Cedric Tillman, and Mr. Swole himself, Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's see.
Wow, you're on board with Marvin Harrison this year.
Well, like at a realistic ranking, 20th for what? Like this makes sense. Not the madness that ensued last year, like eighth wide receiver. I don't know if like it's a little bit too much girth.
Wow.
It's a little bit too much girth and muscle mass at
Kyler Murray.
You guys remember David Boston?
No.
Google David Boston. We have a chance. Google David Boston with the Chargers. He he looked like he was on steroids.
Well, Kyler Murray thought it was AI.
Yeah, like no wide receiver. No wide receiver should be that muscular. Like he's bigger than DK
Metcalf is pretty swole.
Yeah,
DK Metcalf has like a 2% body fat on him. It's not sustainable.
And Harrison looked pretty stiff last year, I'd have to say. So, anyways,
true.
this might be a controversial pick for my bust at wide receiver. I'm gonna go with T Higgins. So just got paid, coming off
Interesting.
contract year, got paid. He's missed 5 games in each of the past 2 seasons. I've been saying on this pod that the Bengals defense will get better. Now they're making me look bad with what they're doing at Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart. But I'm basing that.
Why did they release that linebacker? Why did they release Stewart?
Yeah,
No, sorry, no, not Stewart. Stewart was their first round pick.
But Jermaine Pratt, that's a good point.
Jermaine
I don't know
Pratt,
why they released Jermaine Pratt. What they're doing with Shamar Stewart is ridiculous. Like these clauses, that doesn't make sense. I'm
Yeah,
basing
did you see that on McAfee? Did you see what the clause was?
It's for drug related stuff. Like, and it's a clause that no one did. Like, I think it's a new agent.
It's if he's injured. If he's injured in one season and he misses like a majority of the games, all of his guaranteed money is void. Whereas before, it was if he's injured in like if he misses a majority of one season, they void the guaranteed money for that season. Whereas now
they're nuts.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like,
but there's also something to do with like
prorating
and like paying him later, like later on, paying him later rather than sooner or something. Like
they're fumbling the bag like 100%. If you're a defensive end, like don't go to Cincinnati.
They need new ownership. Like, is it still? It's Paul Brown's daughter.
They're just very cheap.
Yeah,
they've been cheap, and they will continue to be cheap.
So back to T Higgins. So part of my argument was that the defense will be better with new DC Al Golden, who came from Notre Dame. Notre Dame had like a top 5 defense in college. Part of my argument was that the defense will be much better. So Joe Burrow is not going to be coming back like he was last year. He's not going to have to have like 400 passing yards every single game. But ranked on ESPN consensus 11th wide receiver in PPR, yet he's never finished higher than 17. So 2020, he was 28th. 21st, 2021, he was 24th. 2022 is 19th. 2023, he was 51st. And last year was his best season, as mentioned, 17th. So 11th wide receiver to me is like, basically, it's a borderline WR1, and Jamar Chase is still there. Like, so I like the player. I'd rather take him at a value, but to take him basically in the, like what we're saying is potentially first round, high second, crazy to me.
Yeah, Fantasy Pros has him as ranked as 13.
Yeah,
and I still think that's too high.
Yeah, and he's ranked he's ranked before like Devontae Adams, who I don't know why people aren't talking about him more, right? I mean, I think Adams is gonna have another fantastic year with a great quarterback play. No, I agree, Raj. I mean, T Higgins, it's a little bit too rich for my blood that high. Again, not necessarily a bust, but definitely you're not going to be getting your value back for where he's going as far as drafted is concerned.
And he's injury prone. He's going to get injured again.
Well, that's the thing. If he misses, if he plays like 12 games like he does, that's a bust to me. Like, you're gonna be, you're gonna be happy with that like 140-yard game like he had against Denver. Like, that helps you for 1 week, but it doesn't help you throughout the season. So, honorable mentions. I had AJ Brown as an honorable mention. Like it was a tough watch last year. And I think they prioritized the run, and TBD on the relationship with Jalen Hurts. And as much as we liked him and we talked about him in the ranking show, I feel the Ladd McConkey stuff is going a bit too much. Like, even I don't know if I take him WR1 either, and he's being talked about as WR1.
He's Fantasy Pros 11. That was really shocking.
That's right in line for me, my friend. Let me tell you. I see him at 11 is perfect for Ladd McConkey. Perfect.
He has to have an Amon-Ra St. Brown season.
He's going ahead of JSN, T Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans.
Would you take JSN over Ladd McConkey? With Sam Darnold throwing to him?
Yeah, I think I would.
That's a.
But don't forget, Cooper Kupp is there. I'm not saying Cooper Kupp is going to be
why are we saying like, oh, Sam Darnold throwing to him? Like, Sam Darnold he looked good last year.
Yeah, he looked good up until like the last 3 weeks of the season, and then the old Sam Darnold came around. And if you look at the contract that Seattle gave him, it's not exactly indicative of a lot of confidence either. It's basically a 1-year contract.
Okay.
I think the running back class this year is really strong. It's more of a like, I'm probably just taking a running back over Ladd McConkey or like some of the wide receivers at that range, like
Yeah,
a
like that. Yeah, I would
like a
agree there
Josh
too.
Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, like those guys were going to be all in that range. But like again, not Fab, like he has to have like a massive, like again, Amon-Ra St. Brown type season. I don't know if that's the case yet.
Last year he finished as wide receiver 13. Like, I'm not saying he's going to catapult himself into top 5, but to go up a few spots is not crazy.
Yeah, we'll see
Anyway,
with the
that's my
addition of.
opinion. Listen, that's why we're 3 people on the podcast, and typically you guys never agree with me, and that's fine. It's to your own detriment, clearly. But
Well, it's more again addition of Mike Williams back,
okay. All right.
Trey Turner, Trey Harris. Sorry,
Trey Harris. Trey Harris, I'll give you. That's interesting to me, but I think that just opens up the offense more, though, in my opinion. I think it just allows for more. Because and Quentin Johnson or Mike Williams, or sorry, I meant A or B, whatever. They don't really. They're not the guys. They're not there. They're just depth players, and I think that's why they went out and got and drafted for Trey Harris and with Amari Hampton.
It's
I don't know.
crazy.
I'm a little more excited, I suppose.
I'm looking at his fantasy points last year, and like, how the heck did he finish 13th? Had some solid games, but there was a lot of like duds there too.
Yeah.
3.6,
Yes.
5.9,
Yes.
6.3, 7.1, 6.2, 8.9.
We had him in.
His end of the year was very solid. He had double digits in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight to end the year.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit more indicative of how that could translate into next year too, right? At least
we had him in love and hate. I think a lot, both of them equally last year.
Yeah, we did.
We overdid it with him. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll be it for today's episode. Please, as always, follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks with more off-season fantasy news and notes and analysis to prep you for draft season. On behalf of Fab and Nacc, I am Raj, and we will see you next time.
I'm about to bust. Whenever we said bust, that's all I was thinking in my head.
I just got to get my credit card here fast, and purchase Aaron Rodgers number 8 jersey. Here it comes.
Oh my God.
Yes. Oh, I'm definitely getting one. Come on.
I mean,
Hall of Famer.
I don't blame Nacc for wanting to get an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I can't really say
he got married. Good for him.
Did. It's been
to a woman.
What? He's gay now?
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye.